Hello, and welcome again to the Think Bambu Podcast, the show where we unpack the personal and professional growth journeys from some of the most interesting minds in marketing and business. And today we have none other than Darcie Tanner. Darcie, for those that are with you, would you care to give yourself a little introduction?
Hi, I'm Darcie. I'm the founder of Darcie Digital Co. I've been working as a fractional and interim kind of chief marketing officer and operations director for the past 7 years.
Nice. Cool. Well, there's been a lot of chat recently, and I don't want to date this podcast immediately by saying there's been a lot of chat recently, but I think I just have, around the whole fractional role. And so I think I'll just dive straight into the question. Actually, question number one is that you've been in marketing for 22 years. So
Yeah.
I mean, you say that with a grimace, but look, that's a lot of experience there. And you've come over from Texas, you've come to UK, set up a career here. I've done exceptionally well. Um, how did that change from beginning in Texas to coming to the UK, shape your or maybe it didn't, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Did it have any impact on shaping your perspective on setting up a business from scratch to your time working in a more secure, permanent roles?
Secure is
Yeah, right. I
sub
see.
subjective.
Yeah, secure. Yes.
Yeah, it was. So just to kind of a bit of background,
Yeah, yep.
and I'll go far, far back just for a second, but like when it comes to tech and digital, I was a super early adopter. My parents had their own company, and my mom went to night school to learn how to use first it was an electric typewriter, then it
Mm.
was a computer, like back when it was MS-DOS and you had to type in the C command to put in 18 different disks to play a game, that kind of thing. I used to design posters that I printed on a dot matrix printer, but I was very privileged and lucky to have a computer in my house when most people didn't, and lucky to kind of get the internet before most people as well. So it's always just been my passion. And when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to be a photographer when I grow up. I was going to be a lawyer, and then I decided there needs to be hate to be a lawyer, and then I was going to be like a cocktail waitress in Atlantic City. No idea. Mm, But yeah, so I was like, right, I'm going to be a photographer. So rightly or wrongly, and again, privilege will come into a lot of this, privilege and luck, I guess. I have spent my career, I've spent my life following my whatever I felt like. Like, I felt like being creative. I felt like doing tech. I would, early on to like Friendster and LiveJournal and all the things, and just always kind of went towards whatever I enjoyed doing. Um, and I think I have somehow managed to make my career a career out of my hobby. And I think
Mm.
that a lot of people don't get that luxury.
Yeah, yeah.
I will tell you that it becomes very hard when a therapist is like, "You need a hobby," and I'm like, "It's my job," 'cause what am I supposed to do with that? Um, but yeah, so when I moved here, I was 23. I had just gotten married for the first time. I had been in a long distance relationship with a Scottish guy, and who I met. We worked at a summer camp together, and graduated from university, moved here. Like, I think there's a lot of naivety. There's a lot of being raised in America. You can do anything. Like, you can do anything, just try it, work hard, and you'll get far. And I think that moving here was a punch in the face. I was young. I had no friends. I knew no one. I had graduated from university and been like, right, I'm ready for my career. I've always wanted a career. Like, I found letters I've written to myself. I planned on being a single mom with two boys living in like New York and like working my ass off. And I think that my work ethic really comes from my parents. They both worked their asses off. They raised 6 kids. They had their own company. Not always, but ultimately had their own company. Um, and when they needed to, worked several jobs. My dad worked sometimes 8 days a week. It was like that was just normal to me. And my grandmother, they were on a farm. She'd work in the morning on the farm, spend all day with her 6 to 8 kids doing whatever, and then work, work, work till the evening. And yeah, it's just what we did. And I think that it's common in America for women since the war since whatever wars back in the day to work jobs. And didn't really think anything of it. Everybody's like, oh, what about when you have, I was like, when I have kids, I'm not taking any time off. I was like, that's my thing. And then waited, did well, got here, and all of a sudden, George Bush had just been voted in the second time. So people hated me. Like, they hated my voice. They hated that I was from Texas. Can I just clarify? George Bush is not from Texas. He was governor, but he was not from Texas. They thought, I was like, I personally chose him. And remember, this is when we thought he was the worst president ever.
Yeah.
Not like now,
Right.
like bring
Right.
back George Bush. I'll vote for him. So and people were being attacked in Europe, like Americans were being attacked, and it was just really, really hard. And then nobody understood my, I learned a resume, not a CV. Nobody understood my grade point average, because here a 1 is good. In America, a 4 is good. And it's just, and I think what people don't get is that I know that British people see loads of American TV. Now, it's a bit different now. This was in 2004.
Yeah.
But while we both speak English, we do not say the same thing. So it was very, very hard to I came in thinking I was going to get a job. I was going to be a graphic designer. I was going to do whatever, and it was all going to be fine. Yeah, no, that's not how it works. So I actually ended up, my first job was in Kirkcaldy, where I went in to work at like one of these like t-shirt design, like, what was it even like? We'll do your t-shirt, or we'll do a banner, or we'll do a this. And they asked me to make chevrons, and I was like, what's a chevron? Like, like the lines are like no ball sports here, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm more, my personality's like, well, why can't they play ball sports? Like, that's not cool. Anyway, that didn't go very well. Moved to, it's because I was in Dunfermline at the time, where my his family lived while we were staying with them. Moved to Dunfermline, and moved to Edinburgh within the first couple months, and then basically became a temp receptionist. And that was, so I got temp jobs through one of the recruitment companies here, and I was a receptionist at Bernardo's, which I had no idea what that was. Now I know, obviously, the fostering company, and it was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And I don't mind, I guess a thing about me is I don't mind working. I don't mind what I'm doing, as long as I'm working. Like, I can be working as a receptionist and know, okay, sideways, I'm going to be working on my career. My career is always going to be there. So while working there, I was trying to figure out how to, like, where am I going? Who am I supposed to be speaking to? Like, I just would take pictures and just kind of apply for, and this is like, again, 2004. So yes, there's digital cameras. They're like 4 pixels.
Yeah.
But, go around and, make up my own photo shoots, or, I think, well, I ended up shooting Franz Ferdinand once, with like a press pass at, when it was a Virgin or somewhere on George Street. It was like, was it HMV? It's not George Street, Princess Street.
Street, HMV, yeah.
But that was the whole thing where they like only pay you if you have a good shot, and everything was on like actual film, and so you have to get like anyway. I think for a while I actually just sat in my flat and watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer and wouldn't go outside. This is before TiVo, no streaming or anything. And it was hard. And then I got a receptionist job at an advertising agency. And bloody hated it. Like, I was there for about a year. And so I'm sitting in this advertising agency. The managing director would make us print out every pitch deck about 50 times and then bind it with a binder so that he could hand them out at a pitch. And because he didn't trust email yet, he also made his PA print every email that he got. Yeah. And there were like binders of emails. And I was watching the studio, the art department, do the work. And I was like, well, why am I not doing that? Like, I've got a degree in that. I've studied that. My degree was, I should clarify, my degree was in advertising photography. It was like photography and communication design, because you kind of double major in America. So I'd learned Photoshop, I'd learned Premiere back in the day. I think it's back again. And I'd learned typography and all that kind of stuff. And I was sitting here like answering a phone, and I was bored and also didn't understand half of what people were saying. But I met a lot of people, right? So like loads of phone calls, and I was like learning the culture as well. So learning how to
Mm-hmm,
dress, how not to
mm-hmm.
dress, how to be in an office, like Edinburgh, Scotland, UK. And through that, I met some photographers, as you'd imagine, working in an advertising agency. And then I ended up, I just quit one day. Got in a fight with my boss, my line manager, over recycling, and was like, I just can't do this anymore. I was like, I believe in recycling, and we had a fax machine. Again, dating. They wouldn't let me put recycled paper in the fax machine, and I was like, well, you're just killing trees, and I hate this job. MySpace became a thing though, so I'd sit on MySpace. But I need a purpose,
Yeah, yeah.
and there wasn't a purpose. Like I'm not the kind of person that's quite happy to sit at my desk and read a book. Like I need to feel valuable. And I was watching everybody do what I knew I could do. I'm binding these horrible documents, and I was like, no, I can't do this. So I left there and was like, right, I'll do my own thing. God knows what that looked like back then. But I ended up being an assistant photographer to this commercial photographer. So it was amazing. I'd carry the bags and I'd carry the lights, and we'd do studio shoots, and I got to shoot a Hasselblad, and I one point was modeled for like Burton's Snowwear for an internal magazine, modeled as a drunk driver for a drink driving ad. But yeah, just like worked with it was a photographer pair, these two guys, and it was great. And, it's a lot of, I think one of the things that people probably don't know about me, and I'm just kind of learned about myself recently, is I'm actually better not with people. So it's good when you can, especially when it comes to photography. Like I get too anxious, and then I
Yeah.
mess up a party. I did that once. I shot an entire like wedding anniversary and totally fucked it all up. Messed it. I shot a I'll let you edit this. I'll change it.
It's all right.
I shot someone's anniversary party and completely messed up all their photos because I was so nervous that I just messed it up. So being in a studio and being able to like shoot inanimate objects is the dream. And go around into different parts of Edinburgh. I was learning the areas, and I remember doing a whiskey shoot when in New Haven they had the penthouse apartments were brand new, and we
Yes.
could,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, back in the day
Sweet.
before
Yeah.
I think they became council flats. But anyway, they it was like a 2-story penthouse. It was stunning, and we went and did cold tea as whiskey to do a whiskey shoot and things like that. It was fun. It was good. Um, yeah, I probably went a bit off track with this whole question, but
Great.
it was hard is the answer. It was hard. And I'm trying to think where I went to after that. God only knew, where did I go to after that? What was I doing? I think I started doing like little Facebook pages for companies and things like that. So I was doing the photography thing, like assistant photography, and I'd get paid as I worked, and it wasn't like a permanent job. It was like when they needed me, they'd call me kind of thing. I think I would like help organize their records and stuff like that, and kind of admin-y type stuff as well. And I met a stylist there who I eventually worked with for a year. She is good friends with and was running merchandising for Bill Bailey.
All right,
So
cool.
I ended up working with her, and Bill Bailey. So I did a Bill Bailey tour, and that was great. He's actually really lovely in person, and his family and everything else. And on the Tinsel Worm tour, and while I was working with her, I got a job with the Drum magazine. So the Drum is now global, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
used to be for advertising outside of London. And I think actually what happened to this bit that I've skipped out is that and I guess it's quite important, I ended up doing placements at some of the biggest advertising agencies. So I managed to get into the union where I was for about 6 months. And I went in I didn't know what I was, right? So moving into advertising, I learned that apparently there's a creative director and a copywriter team, and these people, they were kids at the time, would go to uni, like Napier, wherever, and they would be a team, and the people down south were teams, and I was like, I'm not a team, I just do whatever you want me to do. So they put me with a very senior creative director, and I did kind of conceptualizing and art direction, and ended up doing copywriting as well. So I got an ad on the radio, actually, about, I think, Miller Homes or something, and which was exciting, but it was very much an internship. So it was like you weren't paid living wage. It wasn't you know, you had no contract, and it was a lot of partying. And then went
That
to
sounds
the
about
Leith
right. Yeah.
agency. uh, just to caveat, a lot of what I'm going to say today is agencies are work hard, play hard, abuse yourself is basically what it is. Don't get paid well for it. And went to the Leith agency for a while, which was amazing. So got to work on things like helped write a Grolsch, was it Coors Light TV ad, and worked on Grolsch and Iron Brew, and yeah. So only girl, as you can imagine, one of the only girls in any of these departments. And moving from Texas, which is bigger than France, and Houston, which is bigger than Scotland, to Scotland, for me that was actually really hard, because I think my ambition fit like Manhattan and London, not Edinburgh. So where I envisioned myself was a bigger pool than where I landed. So going, okay, I'm going to be a creative director. Great. There's 10 of them in Edinburgh, and none of them are going to disappear anytime soon. So no, like, you will not get that job.
Yeah.
There's one female one, and it won't be till these people retire that spaces will open up. So I found that really, really hard. So did a few like competition things, entered things, and then the Bill Bailey thing, and worked at the Drum. I think part of the reason they hired me at the Drum, hi Gordon, was because of my contacts in the agencies, and they wanted a bit of gossip, because that's kind of how it was back in the day. And I was an editorial assistant, $14K a year. This is how
Yes.
long ago that
Yes.
was. Yeah. And I would like, we launched a website version, and this was early days, so I would like put in the copy, and I would put in the URL, and I'd upload the photos of the magazine, and I would put the tags in, and it was like a blog, so that was the part of the gig, and answering phones and calling people and trying to organize things. And yeah, I mean, that was also a lot of fun, 'cause you go to like award ceremonies and stuff like that. And then what did I do after that? I don't remember why I left that, but it was just a case of like, I mean, obviously the commute and everything for after a while gets to be a lot. And it wasn't really what I wanted to do, right? Like editing wasn't really a thing. And I think then I started doing my own thing, just kind of as a freelancer. And by this point I was attending things like Edinburgh Coffee Morning, which I don't know if you know about that. It was a thing that Russell Davies, the advertising guy, started in London. And I would read all his stuff. You get like Campaign magazine and all that kind of stuff back. Well, I know you still do, but I don't read them anymore. And I would always read about his coffee mornings, and I followed his blog, because, RSS feeds and stuff back then. And I had been writing a blog since about 2000. My own blog is from like 2006, 2007. Which was the more public facing from LiveJournal. And, blogging was like the big thing. This is before Twitter. And some like proper old school ad guys started this Edinburgh Coffee Morning version of what Russell Davies was doing in London. And I'd watched it. I think Twitter was starting, and I'd kind of seen bits about it for a while. And I was like, oh, I can't go to that though. Like, right? Like, I can't just show up this like 26-year-old girl who doesn't know these people and just like rock up. And one day I was speaking, Jerry Farrell from the Leith agency became kind of like a mentor to me. We'd meet up and chat and everything, and he would try and help me out and like with advice. And then I would, and a bit about all that, as well as that I got offered a job at Leith agency if I would become a copywriter. And I was like, I'm not a copywriter, is what I said. Like, well done, Darcie. There goes a job. Fine. So then I had to leave that placement, because no, I'm not a copywriter. Fine. Ironically, I've been writing my whole career. So then it was a case of, sorry, I lost my train of thought on that one. That's just going to happen a lot, by the way. Brains
Okay.
disappear. Bones. 45, it's happening. And am I just talking at you? Should I stop? Slow down?
No, loving it. Loving it. Well, you've mentioned quite a lot there. And
Yeah.
what would be really interesting is so part of that journey where you got to, I mean, we've got lots of little
Yeah.
stepping stones, little pivots out each time. Is when we met, you were I've written down like the head
What
of
was I?
social. You're head of social or social
I
media
think I was head
director.
of social platform and community development.
Right, great. I was never going to remember that title, right? All I know is
No,
Darcie
nobody
is
was.
head of social at LBI, big now LBI and Indigenous LBI and
Yeah.
everything else in
7
between.
names that we had.
Yeah, the such a short space of time. Well, actually, not that, but it became a lot short space of time with many names. But to how you got to where you are now, and what I'd love to know is, I mean, this podcast is about those growth moments, and that's personal and professional growth. And was there anything? Sometimes it's lots of mini things
There's
happening rather than one
2
giant
things.
one. Yeah. How did you manage to get from I'm head of social to now I'm working as a like a fractional chief operations officer or whatever role you get brought into a
Yeah.
business? What are what I call them the growth moments that happen to allow that transition for you?
Okay, well, there's 2 early ones I'm gonna say
Yep.
to finish off that history thing.
Hmm.
The coffee morning, I ended up with a great group of people. I ended up with lifelong friends, like, they were at my wedding. By the way, I'm married again now, divorced, blah, blah, blah. That group of people, one of the things that changed my career trajectory, finally, was one of the guys, Ewan McIntosh, was working at Channel 4. 4 had this IP fund where they were investing money into Scottish startups. And he got me an interview with Stuart Cosgrove, who was running a pilot project with Scottish Enterprise called 38 Minutes, which was like an online community for creative, startup-y, all the kind of businesses in Scotland, outside of London type thing. So I got that job, and as soon as you have Channel 4 on your CV,
Yeah.
doors opened. So that was the first bit. So I did that for 6 months. It was a contracted role. So that was in Glasgow. It was lovely, met some great people. And from there, another coffee morning person was like, "Oh, we're looking for someone that knows social. Um, why don't you interview at Civic? I told my boss about you." So I think one thing that's really important for me to say and for people to understand with their own careers is I have literally never been hired off my CV. No one has ever received my CV. Well, some people have received it and maybe emailed me back, but often no. Like, it just doesn't land, which is ironic because I edit a lot of people's CVs and they do get jobs, but it's not a CV problem, maybe. So most of my career has been recommendations and people putting me forward or introducing me to people, which has been awesome. And I'm very grateful for that. So someone else was like, "I've told my managing director about you, come in and have a meeting." And so I went in and had a meeting and I got this job at Civic. So first proper agency job. So got to make up my job title, digital media geek. Like, how lame are we sometimes when we're young? 2 weeks before, so the first thing is Channel 4. The second thing, Coffee Morning obviously enabled these 2 things. 2 weeks before I was due to start that job, I went on holiday with my ex-husband and I broke my spine in Greece. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was mountain biking. Yeah, was mountain biking. I was going down a mountain, my tire popped. It was like the 3rd descent, so I had managed 2 of them. And, people's tires were popping, it happens. And it was kinda like, do you go over the mountain or do you hit a rock?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hit a rock. Problem with the rock is the rock was quite big, stopped the bike. I flew and landed on my back. I kind of bounced, I think, and landed on my side, actually. But so I broke my spine in 2 places. It took like 3 vehicles to get me down. It was fucking it was MacGyver stuff. I
Beep.
cuss a lot,
It's
sorry.
okay. No, you're
It
all
was
good.
MacGyver's. Luckily, the group of people on this holiday group were, one of them was like a helicopter medic and one was a nurse. And I've got pictures because me as the blogger was like, "Can someone take pictures of me, please? I can't move, but like, can you make sure that we photojournalists?" So there's pictures of me lying on the ground, my arms swollen and blue. I had to make them roll me, even though you shouldn't do that when you're not able to move because it could paralyze you. But I was going to lose my arm. I was like, I'm not losing my, like, so they put inner tubes around my neck and kind of inflated them a bit to make a neck brace, like bicycle inner tubes. And yeah, so 3 vehicles down, and let me just say Greece as well is 20 years, if not more, behind the NHS. It changed my life, that accident. I was there for a couple weeks. They had to put 14 screws, 2 pins, and 2 rods in my spine. I've got like a 12-inch scar on my back. And I became a trending topic on Twitter. Save Darcie C was my, so that was fun. Again, coffee morning, love those guys. Rang up like a 350-pound phone bill on my mobile because that was I think I had an iPhone, but it was early days.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it didn't at first. It was like, I was like, where's my epiphany? People are like, you almost died. I was like, me almost died, whatever. Like, no, I didn't. Um, but yeah, I got back, started that job a couple weeks later. Well, I had to like be able to walk and stuff, obviously. And just left my husband, like changed my life, met my new husband, just like I decided everything was so much had been holding me back because I was worried about what other people were going to think or how it was going to affect them.
Mm-hmm.
Like on paper, my marriage was perfect. Everything surrounding it was perfect. Everything with, money, bleh. And I was like miserable, absolutely miserable. Um, and so, yeah, I totally changed my life, threw out everything, was like, right, I'm going with my gut. I'm going to listen to my gut because it has been telling me all these things and I've been ignoring it. And now I'm going to do it. So I did it. And that was September 2009. October 2010, I started at Big Mouth Media. So I had 2 different routes into there, which was great. So I went in, interviewed, got the job, started on the social media team where Gemma, who works with you, was
Mm-hmm.
working. So it was, and Leanne was my boss, and went in, and yeah, I remember doing an audit, like a social media audit was one of my first jobs. Um, and I think the big part of my career there, and I was there for what, 5, 6 years, is I was never looking for a job title. I am just curious. Like, I've now, later in life, realized that my core values are curiosity and integrity. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to do everything I do with those. And I have never been after anybody's job. I've never been after a job title. I've just worked hard, been curious, asked questions, tried things, figured out answers. And over that time period, other people did their own things around me, and I was promoted and promoted and promoted, and they make up jobs and made up job titles. Um, got a team, ended up, I was also at one point managing the blogger outreach and community development team with Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
when we all sat in Timberbush 2 or whatever the second building was.
Yes.
And then, yeah, and it just kept going. I had about 3 or 4 different bosses in London, in the London office. And again, they give me like Edinburgh focused job titles, or it would be the whole social team focused job titles. And then, what we merged, but we became part of Digitas, LBI, and then we had like MRY, the social agency in America, and then we did an offshoot of them in the UK. And I think, yeah, I mean, just kept growing. I mean, I don't think there's anything better than for me and to learn than working in a global agency that has global clients.
Well, you just mentioned something there about your values, and I've got a question written here, and I'd like for you to expand upon that there, because there will be others that are been in this situation, and how they get out, stick it through. How I'm trying to use the word, not use the word. How do they navigate this? But how do they come out of this relatively unscathed? So it's about leaving a role that doesn't fit with your integrity. But how do you distinguish whether it's one that's just you've got to power through? It's a little bit of challenging right now, as opposed to you've got to go, like, to save like your own sanity and
Yeah,
stay true to yourself. There, how do you distinguish between the two, of those two situations?
it's really hard. And it's not always easy. So I have been guilty in the past of telling people, just go, like life's too short, right? Just leave. But especially in this day and age, financially, a lot of people can't do that. Like you can't just be like, yeah, okay, I'll just find another job, because there's not those jobs. And I think in my situation, and this will be anybody that kind of wants to work in our field and Scotland is that the job opportunities are less than they would be if you were in London. It's just a fact, especially, it just is. So if there's not remote opportunities, and I feel that we're seeing remote opportunities dwindle, 5 years past COVID or whatever. So you have to look at your lifestyle. What can happen? Where can you get support? Where financially can you do it? Basically, is the thing. They always say it's easier to find a job when you already have one. So there's part of that. But I mean, I'll be completely honest, I don't do well with confrontation. I have my own personal history that means that I really struggle with confrontation. So actually raising it with people can be quite difficult. And in many of my jobs, I probably acted out in ways that are inappropriate, especially back in the day. And I have stayed in jobs that were not good for me too long. And sometimes you're pushed out in certain ways as well. And you just have to pretend that's not the case on the surface.
Yeah.
I have friends now who are, 40 plus, 50, who are leaving their jobs with no job to go to. I left Digitas with no job to go to for that very reason. And I think, in a way that was a statement in its own right. And I wanted it to be. I was happy for it to be that. I was nervous, but I also thought it was important for other people in the company to see that you don't have to have a job to go to. And that kind of let people know that I wasn't going to be treated that way without saying it out loud at the time, which I was not allowed to do at the time. So it was a case of going I'm going to hopefully give other people, if they see me do it, hopefully they'll know that they can do it too. That it kind of underlying, if it'll empower other people that, I had people come to me, where are you going? Nowhere. And they'd go, oh, interesting. And I'm like, whatever that says to you, fine. But if even one person saw that and was like, oh, okay, she's just not okay working here, I cannot be, I can also follow that, then good.
Yeah, it's if you're in a position to, then
If you're in the
absolutely.
position
Yeah,
to.
if you're in the position to. I mean, there has been I can't we can't say names or anything like that here, right?
Yeah.
It's for that there was one company that I was very close to doing that with, two actually. One culturally, I really hope they've sorted themselves out now. I think they have. I think the problem children have gone, and in one
Yeah.
sense there. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, me
You
and
can only
my
hope for the best.
yeah, it wasn't like I was part of that drama. I was just like, I just don't want to be part of it. I like this is minging.
Yeah.
Just being part of that culture. No, thank you. And then there's
I think
others
it's
where
also, if you don't have the ability to change it, so to a certain level as you go in businesses, and you'll have this as well. Obviously, you're a founder now of your own business. And I'm hoping this goes with what you're about to say. I was only going to get so far in that company. I was not going to turn into a man. I was not going to end up going to Eton in my past. I was not going to be on the board. That was not going to happen. And as companies merge, you get farther and farther from the top. If you can't manage up or change whatever behavior is happening, then, if you can, that to me, that would be more of a reason to stick it out. If you can't, then, it's harder to see the value in it. Sorry, continue.
that mine was just aligning with values. There was there's just a lot of sexism, a lot of misogyny, homophobia, all this sort of stuff that was just going like, nope. Just nope. You talk about
Yeah.
managing up. It's the only time in my career where I should have been fired. I can't even believe I'm saying this. I put this out. This is going out on the internet. I should have been fired on the spot for how I spoke to this man. But no, I just like, you can't talk.
Sounds like you said the right thing, though.
It was it felt like I said the right thing, and I think I was lucky. I was lucky that I think they thought, okay, well, he brings value to the company here. Maybe he's just having an off day because it seems more like of an outburst rather than
Yeah.
behavior, but it just or consistent behavior. But it just my cup was full that day, and on that
Yeah.
particular moment, it was no, you can't talk to people like this. You can't treat people like this. I'm not happy with you doing this right now. And I think this is what I think of you when you do it. And the response was,
I think sadly a lot
okay.
of times the people at the top, they, you know, it has to come from the top behavior, I believe. And, the different types of behaviors. And I've worked with loads of companies now, right? Like over the past 22 years, loads. So I'm not singling anyone out here. But you have to lead from the top. And if you allow certain behaviors or you showcase certain behaviors, it gives people permission. They think it gives them permission to behave a certain way. And, unfortunately, like you get exit interviews, you get feedback, but they will more often than not, never see themselves as the problem.
So tying this back to you, Darcie, and some of you mentioned there about your blog, your Substack, that you've got about leading with empathy without losing a
Yes.
competitive edge. I was wondering, with the career you've had, hoping there's some examples of this, where you've been able to use like a soft skill that's been able to have some sort of commercial gain, or how have you implored or implied like those soft skills that I personally think hold so much value, especially today. Like on LinkedIn, everyone's still like, as I say, like beating their chest, beating up, this is the graph, blah blah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone's focusing on this when I think there's maybe it's true. Maybe it's true that they did manage that. But I'd like to know the story. I mean, probably didn't. Sorry, I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm so
He who
cynical.
shouts loudest isn't the
Uh,
most skilled.
right. It's such a Scottish thing where I'm like, did you I? Did you do
Yeah.
that? Right. Um But how is there been situations where you've been able to apply empathy and you've actually been able to get a good business result out of it?
I think so. There's been times where one of the best things I ever learned in coaching courses was asking people how they are. Like starting a meeting or a session or whatever, going like really like, but not just doing it to tick a box, but like caring, And I think one of my maybe negatives, downsides, is that I'm impulsive and I don't necessarily track things. I'm sure I'm some sort of spicy. But if I've read your CV, don't talk to me about it in an interview because I'm bored. I've already read it. Like, don't, like I don't like repetition and stuff like that. So I think I don't follow a script. I don't go into a meeting like, here's our one-to-one. Let's, so I, there have been more than one occasion where I've gone in and, spoken to people. And the first question I've asked them is, how are you? Like, I obviously know business wise how some things are, and I don't expect anyone to tell me their personal lives if they don't want to, but I genuinely like, are you okay? And I've had people that were not okay. When I was coming in thinking or knowing we were going to have a difficult conversation, but it just leveled the playing field. If you ask someone that and they start crying and they're like, no, actually, I'm not okay. This is happening, which maybe I knew nothing about. And actually, I just can't do it. I need to go. Okay. Like, well, that wasn't the direction I thought the conversation was going to go. And but it turns out, it was the right decision for both parties. And it's really hard to tie empathy to commercialization without sounding like a jerk. But in the
Yep.
end, commercially, that was the best thing for the business as well, you know? So it's that actually hearing people and actually going, like, I'm sure I've worked with people before as well that they just weren't interested in the new job they'd been given.
Mm,
Like, they're like, here's this new job. This is what you need to learn. This is what you're going to do. This is how and a lot of people should be, if companies are doing AI right, should be doing this right now. AI's in, we're not going to get rid of you and replace you, but we're going to retrain you into a different type of role. And I think
100%.
we saw
Yeah.
that a lot in the digital world because it moved at what we thought was at pace. But some
Yeah.
people just, yeah, right.
And compared to now,
Wasn't that
my
funny?
God. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I'm just thinking actually, yeah, we did say that. And I'm like, oh my God, like last 3 years.
All the time.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
pace and onwards. Yeah. That, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit for everyone. So it's understanding that from people and understanding like when you can either help take off their workload or when maybe they need a different type of role and where can that move to? Is it a different department? Are they, I mean, it's just, there's a lot out there. And I think the world needs more empathy. I'm a highly empathetic person. It's probably, in my DNA, I guess, but it goes both ways. Yeah, like I can get really upset about things that probably I shouldn't get upset about. But if you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes and go, okay, wow, that must really hurt and really suck. And I mean, like you said, one of my worst things in the world, I ran cross country for a year in high school, right? I was a competitive swimmer. I broke my ankle, so I couldn't swim. And then I decided to run. Don't ask me why I couldn't swim, but I could run. There was a space in between that. But I did cross country, which I hate running. And so it would be like running 2 miles before school or something like that, and then 5 to 8 miles after school. I had to get up at like 4:30 in the morning. I was getting picked up at 5. I hated going to sleep at night. Hated it because I knew I had to wake up and do that. And I was like, at 16, I was like, I'm never, ever going to do that. Like, nothing in life can make me want to feel that way ever again. I love sleep. I love sleep. So to hate going to sleep because I had to wake up and do something I was dreading is one of those things that feeling stuck with me so much. And I was like, if flipping hamburgers is what makes me happy, that's what I'm going to do. And I will live the life around flipping hamburgers, whatever income that is. So I don't want anyone to feel like that. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they are in a position where they have to be miserable or hurting or treated in a certain way. It's just not my cup of tea. Like I will always fight against that.
I like what you said about it's hard to talk about like the empathy without sounding like or and commercialism like without sounding like a jerk. And where I tied to the two together, at least inside my head, is around retention and loyalty of staff
Exactly.
and that there. And like just a little bit of insight for every one-to-one I've ever done. The first question I will have is, "How are you doing?" And sometimes that's a look, I'm fine, blah blah blah. Like we're onto it. Like some people are down to business. So you might not know this, Darcy. I worked for a company called Insights for a little bit, where it's talking about self awareness, and you've got like they're called like sometimes the color people. I'm trying to find my little coaster. I'm pretty sure my daughter has either taken away or has eaten it, and I'm like,
Fair.
that's gone now. I'm also looking around, and there's a few other bits that I thought were here that are no longer there. So yeah, no, okay, so I can't show you that.
You've
But
got like also obviously like empathy. Be kind.
yeah, be
That's
kind.
it.
There's kindness. But like with how are you doing? That they're like, okay, I want to be able to keep the best people, right? Like one of the things for Think Bamboo is that I've always managed like right now, I say, okay, I only want seniors in the team. Like we're a small, tight knit group. I want people who know what to do. Like they know what they're doing. They're able to put the strategy as well as the execution behind it. And they also know like some days are going to be tough. Other days are going to be like, hey, BAU, we're cool. Like this is just what we're doing. And I also need them to have but the loyalty part is where it gets hard because many moons ago, on my first or second day of a new job, uh, one of the senior leadership team said, "Look, I only have a few expectations of you. One is to do your job." That there, and I was like, "Fine." I signed a contract saying I would do that. So far, so good. And then the second one was, "And I expect loyalty from you." In fact, I think she said, "I demand loyalty from you." And I went in that moment, I went like, I've never heard those words come out. Like I just never heard those two come out, and I was like, oh wow, you. And it took me a few minutes. Like I was still thinking about it, like when someone's still talking, you're like, I'm still like
Yeah.
5 minutes ago on what you just said there, and I was like, right, okay, cool, right. And then I left that, and I was
That
thinking,
is, yeah, a
then she
massive
like
red
they're
flag.
yeah they're expecting that, but okay, what does expecting mean? Like, what does that loyalty mean to her? Because I always thought that
Yeah, what
loyalty had to be
situation are you gonna be in where you're gonna have to prove that? Like, that's
yeah, I
very
was thinking yeah, so
loaded.
I felt yeah, loaded is the word for it, right? And I was like, well, loyalty to me is earned. Like that's how
Exactly.
it is. And the friends that I've had are like we trust and know each other. They've been since we were 12, 13, right? And
Yeah.
like we've had that there. And you don't just get that immediately. And so it's like it's a bit of a two-way thing of okay, I can ask this in a one-to-one or like with that empathy part of saying, how are you doing? And it's up to them to say, how much do I trust Jamie? How much do or company think about beer, are they going to be all this? And I've got to go like, you only have to say what you're telling me. I'm always going to tie it back to like, how are you doing? Okay. If something's going on at home, okay, is there anything, do you need some time? What anything like that. And how does it like from a professional standpoint, is this impacting the work? How can I support? What can we do?
And you
If
have to
there's
be
like,
prepared for that to change the whole
yeah,
meeting.
yeah,
Like,
exactly,
forget
right?
the rest of
Yeah,
your agenda or whatever, you
yes,
know?
yeah,
It might end the meeting might end there. It might be like, "Okay, well, that's that." Or
yeah.
it might, just take on a whole different purpose.
And then we've got a record of it then, that's cool. Most of I mean, I have to say that is rare, or it's rare that those situations have happened. Most of the time it's a, "How are you doing?" And most of them go, "Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, this is it. This is what we're doing. What was I up to at the weekend?" I tend to do mine at the beginning of the week, and that's where I go like, "Ah, okay," and I can sort of gauge
Yeah, how
I
it's
can get,
going.
yeah, how this is going from there. But, here,
I've seen a lot of
Darcy.
company I have s not a lot, sorry. I have seen companies that say they perform empathy, say they treat their people well, think that their teams are loyal, but actually and obviously I've had the privilege of sitting at some senior tables, and the leadership team are not actually kind or empathetic or, and those companies from the commercial perspective, like we were saying, some are gone. Some are, while it's not being said out loud, it's definitely being said through recruitment consultants, through people, through, in various ways, shapes, and forms. And, doesn't always pay off in the end. And also,
Eh,
you're in a lot of jobs, you're an employee. Like, at the end of the day, especially the bigger companies you're an employee. You're not a family member. It's a means to an end for someone in that business.
yeah, when someone says, "We're a company, we're family," that's, yeah,
Except for you, because you
well,
are
except for
literally
us, of
family.
course. But hey, look, if I I think they'll say if there's anybody that's in my firing line most of the time, it's my family. Where I'm like, "Who's gonna
Yeah.
fight today?" I'm like, "These guys." Everyone else, "Oh, we're cool." Like, that's all good. But if you share the same surname as me, then we're gonna have
Yeah, we're on
problems
it's
today.
on.
No,
I think
it's
one of
not the
my
case.
downfalls and my like, one of my weaknesses, I guess I should say, is that I give my all to my jobs, right? Like, so
Mm.
I go in and I become a cheerleader for that company, and I just, I do. I give it my all. As my husband saying the other day, "You wear your heart on your sleeve when it comes to work." And I'm like, but it's also, and I literally have become my job. I've become my company. So, okay, fair. But it's not healthy. And it does mean that when I do leave a job, I do somewhat feel like I lose my identity. And I then place too much on, s- on, am I successful? Because yeah, I don't know. I find it really hard. So when you put yourself that much to a company and something goes wrong, and I identify my value based off of whatever's happening with that organization or that job or a project. And I think overall that's something that's not very healthy. And if, I'm sure lots of people experience that, but I'm still working through it, like trying to detangle myself from work
So
as it being my identity or my whether or not I'm successful.
yeah, so there's talk about insights there, and I may get this absolutely wrong. That kind of color energy or that kind of energy that you bring in there is very similar to what I what I've got, which is not what I've got. We are all the energies. If someone's watching this, going, actually, you have to be all four. Yes, I know. So
Yeah.
yes, we're all four of those energies.
Is
But it's
this
the
the
earth.
Lego one where people get the Legos and they put
Yeah,
them in the
exactly,
color of the
right?
order?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
I've
and
heard of
they're
it.
but you're all of them, and it just depends on the energies that you dial up, dial down, and all the rest of that
Yeah.
there. But what you're describing there is the earth green one, which is rooted
Okay.
in values and in empathy there, about like, "Hey, look, I've got to really align with this," and when those values get challenged, all sorts of things can happen, right? And that's where
Yeah.
it's like, so, for example, so it can come across, what I found really funny about this was mine was really high, like, for both consciously and subconsciously. And it was, what was mine? It was like 3 above the line, 1 below the line. It's been a while now, so it's probably all skewed.
Yeah.
Where it was, earth green, followed by cool blue, followed by sunshine yellow, followed by fire red. There's those ones there, and the blue one's like the data, the detail. The yellow is, I'm totally paraphrasing here in top level,
That's
where
okay.
it's the more outgoing, more. I'm the ones that speak to think. Those types of those type there.
Yeah.
And then the fire red is that I'm results driven. They can be perception of less empathetic, but not really. But when we say about the earth green stuff, it can almost come across as a bit like a bit hippie. Where it's like, oh, I'm so in
Yeah.
touch with their feelings and the values and stuff. And so when everyone was looking through them on, I had to go through this like course to be accredited to give out these things years ago now. So
Yeah.
it's probably all out of date. But when they said like, "Oh, Jamie, you've got this sort of profile. This is quite fun," and I was like, "Oh God, yeah." I mean, yes, people say like, "Oh, you're too in touch with emotions. You can feel when you say like reactive and to work with that, they're like, "Oh, do you know who else was like that?" And I was like, "Oh, who else? Oh, Hitler." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, because he had really strong values. He really believed in this. If we were to do the profile here, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Why?" And they're like, "We're not comparing you to
Oh,
Hitler,
why would you
Jamie.
say that to me?
It was just the idea of like with that perception of, oh, I'm really in tune with my feelings, and but it's like, and when like
Yeah.
big feelings, like you can also, what does that mean? Like you take on the weight of others as well,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
carry that
I think
with you.
it's actually really, so I'm not like, I haven't been assessed yet. It's happening, like everybody's finding out their ADHD, autism, all this stuff. And one of my things that I think is quite interesting is I've, and I'm really, people find me really annoying, right? Especially leadership teams, they find me annoying because I'm like, wait, remember we said that thing that was exactly like this, and oh, this is going to happen, and they ignore me, and then like 3 months later it happens, and I'm like, I knew it was going to happen. I told you it was going to happen. Like, I'm not a psychic, but I can kind of see pattern recognition,
Hmm.
and I can
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like go, oh, I see where this is going. Let's skip all the middle.
Hmm.
That and the fact that I can walk into a room and feel the vibe, like
Mm.
feel it to where it almost hurts. Like I hate it because like, I just don't know. I wish I could be, so say me and my husband get in a fight. We'll use my husband instead of work as an example. I can't be in the room. I'm like, do not come into the bedroom till I'm asleep, because if you come in, everything changes and I cannot go to sleep. So
Yeah.
it's that ability. And I think that's where the empathy bit comes in too, because I know when something's wrong with someone. Like, even if, say, work's going fine and everything, but I can feel it. And then I go into a meeting room and I'm like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? Something feels off.
Mm. Mm.
And then some of the biggest situations that I've had with team members have been because I just like that kind of thing. You can just feel something's off. And it's a blessing and a curse, I guess. Because that is where it, can be very uncomfortable when you're in situations or with clients or whatever, and you're feeling the things and nobody wants to admit them, or they're not things that
Yeah.
you would say out loud in that type of situation. If you're smart, sometimes I just can't stop myself, which is not good. But yeah, it's an interesting one, having feel. And it used to be for a while, it was this whole like women shouldn't have feelings in business. You're too emotional, you're too this, you're too that. And I'm like, well, don't hire me then.
So sorry, I'm aware of the time right now.
That's okay.
So, but that part there that you said there about not bringing the emotion into it. Now, that was something that I heard about myself, about what year is it now? 2020. I think it was 2017 where I heard it for the first time of saying, "Oh, Jamie, you bring too much emotion into things." And I was like, I feel like I'm bringing the emotion into things that warrant it. But there's obviously
Yeah.
times where like we got to that. I was like, it's a situation where, yeah, it's easy to defer to facts, but the things that we're making a decision upon, uh, really are impacting on someone's life here. And I feel like it's easier to throw out the feelings and just focus on that number on the spreadsheet right now rather than taking the full context. And I was like, okay, in this situation, I think I'm right to think about that. But it was also a learning point for me of going, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, sometimes you've just got to look at the data, pull back, and not have that there. But I realized that that was the first time that I'd heard it from me as a man. I brought that
Mm.
to my wife at the time, said like, hey, at the time, she's still my wife. Don't know why I said at the time. At the time when that happened, I went to my
Because some
wife.
of us have multiples. So.
Multiple wives. No, that's no, I'm not good at that route. So I said that to her, and she was like, "Oh, I get told that all the time." I'd like not in like a, "Oh, Jamie, don't you know?" If she was just like, "Oh man, yeah, when that happens, ugh, it's so annoying," and I was like, "Wait." What do you mean?" And she's like, "Oh," and that's where I was hearing more about it. And I was like, "That is
Yeah.
crazy
I
to
mean, I
me."
was working with
Like,
a young male, we'll just put it that, once. S He found himself on the board, and he decided that he wanted to implement something across the business that I thought was absolutely uncalled for and unethical. And you know, again, this is where my impulsivity comes in. I know everybody doesn't have this privilege, and at the time, like I was going to be totally screwed. But I was like, if you proceed, and I said this in a board meeting, if you proceed with this route and the things you've just said out loud, I will resign. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not letting
mhm,
you do it. I'm not going to, I will not be part of this happening in this business and to these people. Like, it is not okay. It's not okay. I mean, I was shaking, you're like,
yeah, yeah,
it's,
yeah.
and, it was, anyway. So, okay, let's take a break, blah, 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 blah. He called me later and said some really inappropriate things to me, and I had a nervous breakdown. Told him some truths. I started shaking, like seal cry. Like I hung up on him, seal cry. I texted there was another board meeting. So it was like between the board meetings. So it must have been like it within a month, this whole thing. No, like I literally had, diazepam in bed crying like a seal, like breakdown.
Mhm.
I didn't go back. I don't think they did it in the end, but you tell me I'm being emotional, fine, but I still to this day would do that again.
Yeah, yeah.
I
You got
will stand up for what I believe is right for people, especially when it comes to ethics, values, morality, like, no. And this is one of the reasons why I can't. Like, when I met my husband, we worked at this agency, Civic, where they did a lot of government stuff. It's a name Civic. And my husband's gone very much towards red tape. Like, every job has had more red tape and
mhm,
stuff.
mhm,
He works in risk. I'm like,
mhm,
I've gone the opposite because I have to be able, for me, I need to be able to impact on a job. I need to be able to impact on the people. I was lucky enough to be on this course, Women in Technology in Scotland. I got chosen as one of 9 women to go to do this. It was like positive discrimination thing that TRC Media was doing. They had like this. They had one, but no women were applying, so they did a women's one. And so I was on the inaugural cohort of that. And we did a day a month for 9 months. We did like a course and an intensive heavy day of something. And we helped create that agenda. And then we ended, I don't know if you remember this, because I was at MRY, LBI, Lost Boys,
mhm.
when we get
Yeah,
into
yeah.
that. When I went, and then we did a week in San Francisco. Did a week in like Silicon Valley in San Francisco and met like Facebook, Google, Waze, Anne Winblad, who's a VC, and Patty McCord, who is like my hero. And coming back from that trip, I was like, I am not going to hold back on making people's lives better that work with me. Like, I'm not going to not fight for culture, for non-toxic stuff, for people to have equal rights, for whatever. I was like, I'm just not. It's who I am. That's ended up, when I started Darcie Digital Co., first things I did was what you do with a client, right? If you're doing a brand project, I wrote down my mission statement, my value, I just went
Yep.
for it. Who am I? What is this company going to be? I won't work with dicks. I am going to, I will excuse myself if it's not right. I will, where I feel comfortable, because again, I struggle with confrontation, but I will highlight where things are not okay, depending, on the scenario. And to this day, I will do that. And I've been lucky to work with people that align with my values mostly. And if not, I had one client that was, I think he was just his personality type. And I was working with him with a colleague, kind of like as a pair on a project. And my partner was like, if if you want to fire him, we'll fire him. Like, as a client, we will. I've got your back 100%, And to have a male partner that was, he's a great guy. I love working with him when we work on projects together, who is like, I've got your back. Like, that is not okay. I've got your back. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to leave on a low.
Mhm.
I'm going to finish the project. I will finish the piece of work, whatever it is, but I will not work with him again. And that's kind of where I draw the line. I'm like, you know, and I think he accidentally actually got copied into something, but he apologized. But still, I was like, you know, but the fact that I had the support, and I think a lot of people don't have that support. And a lot of people think, especially young people go into their first jobs, getting bullied, like absolutely bullied. And what the behavior they're seeing is shocking. And then they learn that as they think that's how it works. And I'm like, no, what you see is not okay. And and I have had this conversation with people through coaching, sidelines, behind the scenes for a while. I mean, up until probably recently, I've been very vocal and very transparent and very honest about my life experiences, the ones I'm allowed to say out loud for whatever reasons. And the DMs I get, the private messages I get on LinkedIn, the things that people are going through is still unbelievable. And the fact that I'm grateful that that by what I've shared, even if one person, even if they don't contact me, if it helps one person, then fine, call me an oversharer, call me whatever you want to call me. But if it helps one person, and the people that come to me, that I'm able to go back to them and go, you are not crazy, this is not okay. And especially, I think what I was trying to get on to earlier with the red tape and everything is that the bigger the organization is, the less they care about individuals. They will say they do, but then, laying off 8,000 people next week, that's not really caring about people, is it? Disappearing people. We know this from jobs that we've had at companies I shall not name, who, you have the disappearances throughout the year. Then you have your mandatory redundancies every year because you got to keep the company tight for the board members who get the bonuses. And it's really sad. It's really sad. And so, hopefully I'm grateful that people have seen me as a safe space to ask about being a woman in business, being a mother in business, work, senior leadership, like just how do you work with people? How do you get a job doing X? How do you handle this kind of scenario? And none of this is paid stuff. I'm not like out there pushing myself as a mentor or a coach or anything, but I will more than happily have hours of conversations in LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, and help people. It's, the more people that do that and that do it honestly and that tell people the truth, the better, I think.
Well, telling people the truth and that value there, I'd like to cast your mind back to your very first, I say your first job. I can't remember which one the first job that you said it was. There were so many that
Well,
came
my
at the
first
beginning.
job, I put a business
Kirkcaldy.
card recently on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Kirkcaldy, oh God, yeah, that one.
Kirkcaldy, the
Okay.
print shop. I'd like to your first graduation. About what advice would you give to baby Darcie with everything that you know now? Is there anything that you would tell her?
And that job.
Whatever, however you want to tell her. It might not just be for, hey, look, this is what a chevron is. Get going. You can be whatever you want.
No, you know what because I do a lot of internal family systems work with myself and sometimes with therapists. And I have always been the odd one out. I've always been like made fun of. I was severely bullied, made up my own clothes. And, a few years ago I had half my head shaved, right? So when I was little, I had a haircut that was like this, and I would just do whatever I felt like because I liked it. And then I'd get made fun of. Over time, as you grow up, people just have opinions. Apparently they're allowed to share with you, and you're weird. And I hated my name because it was weird. Why wasn't I Kelly or Stephanie or some American girl name that I thought Jennifer? And do you know what? I am exactly who I should be, and all those things made me so unique. And now that I've got a little girl and I'm watching her do these things, I'm supporting the absolute shit out of them. My kids, what a career. Who knows what's going to be around when they grow up? Like, I have no idea. Like, right now, my son wants to be a YouTuber and a gamer. Like, of course you do. And my daughter, changes her mind every day. She wants to be a vet, but also a fashion designer, but also, a space rocket person. Fine. And I'm like, I would much rather they focus on what makes them happy, which is what I've inadvertently done. One time, someone who I shall not name in my life was like, why don't you go study to become a bookkeeper? Like, getting work in advertising is really hard. Why don't you just become a bookkeeper? And I was like, what? Like, no. And another person I was working with at an agency was like, why don't you just go become a suit? And I was just like, And I kind of did, I guess, whatever. But I think just keep going is what I would tell her. I'd be like, you're going to have times where you think you're not like everyone else and it's not right. And you've not, you but that's fine. And, I'm in that phase. I'm right exactly where I was before. I am in the position where I'm making up my next phase of my career. And literally, I've been doing that my whole life. So none of this existed before. It didn't exist when I was at university. What I was doing, Big Mouth didn't exist when I was at university. I've got to, the hard bit is keeping the confidence, I think, and not
Mm,
second guessing myself. It's really hard to prove you're doing a good job when something's not been done before.
that is a brilliant line. I like that.
Thanks. I'm
Uh,
trying to keep myself from going crazy.
I really like that. Well, here at the end of these sessions, I like to use them to give out like gratitude and kudos to those that have helped people along the way. As I think it usually takes a village to lift people up and get them to where they are. And so, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to, a thank you, a thumbs up to? Could be a group
Yes,
of people.
I have got to say that one of the best things that I've ever found in my career was going on that cohort I was mentioning. We call ourselves the Specials.
Nice.
So the group of women in Scotland in technology, that there were 9 of us and we're all in a WhatsApp group together still. That having that peer mentor group, and it was one of the, it was one of the first I'd had of people that aren't there to judge you.
Hmm.
We were all from different types of, all in tech and digital, but some were agencies, some were, we were all different things. Having that support system of people to genuinely listen to you and support you, we have built loyalty, we have built trust. It is a safe space, regardless of if we're in person, if we're in WhatsApp, if we run into each other in person. Some of us have ended up on mat leave together. They're my best friends. And so I would say that group is, and you know who you are. I just can't name them all. I mean, I can if you want me to, but that and the coffee morning group, who became my best friends, and my, yeah, those 2 sets of people have been there for me above and beyond, and I would not be where I am without them, especially because I feel that my career has dealt with a lot of people who were trying to push me the other way.
Yeah, and having that support network, as peers, whether that's family or whatever, is
Yeah,
so
so
important.
important.
Yeah. Well, here, thank you so much for your time, Darcie. I really, really appreciate it. For those that
Thank
are
you.
keen to hit the follow button, I'm going to see Darcie wherever she is. Where can people find you and what's next?
They can find me on LinkedIn as Darcie Tanner. And the Instagram, I'm the Darcie, and Twitter, I've deleted. I was at Darcie, though. That was pretty cool. And on TikTok, where I mainly lurk, I am also the Darcie. And you can also find out more about what I do at darciedigital.co. And yes, there's not meant to be an M on it. It's just .co. And what's next for me? I am pulling my Madonna and reinventing myself at the moment. I'm still, I think we're in a really interesting space, both from a tech perspective and an ethical perspective. So I'm trying to work out what all that means, but I think there's a lot of people struggling that I can help, and a lot of businesses I can help. I just want to help people. I just want to help companies, help businesses stay in business, run well, run efficiently. And there's loads of ways of doing that to grow, and, to grow in a sustainable way, and hopefully put some good out into the world.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And
So
thank you,
thank you.
the person who is watching, listening, depending on how you're doing this. I know Sarah likes to put it on her car, and I'm like, it's YouTube. Don't do that. But hey, if you're just listening, then that's absolutely fine. I'm very
I
grateful
listen to a
for.
lot of podcasts without watching the video, actually. So
Good. I was just thinking of anybody doing that. I'm like, oh man, that's so
yeah,
dangerous.
Trevor Noah does a lot of video. I love Trevor
Yeah.
Noah. I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
His podcasts are brilliant, but I rarely watch the videos along with them. I just listen.
Just listen. Well, here, thank you so much. Truly grateful for you. And Darcie, thank you very much for your time, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.